It's been a long 24 hours for Erin and her husband, Gary. Around 7:45 last night, she was notified a possible liver donor had been found.
When they said, "We have a liver for you," I screamed. I was really excited because the time that I'd been waiting for was finally there.
She was rushed by ambulance to University Hospital in Madison.
You sort of go between being so happy that it's finally here and that you're going to be able to start the recovery, and then worrying that maybe you won't even get the liver, and then worrying that you won't make it through the operation.
While Erin underwent testing overnight, so did the liver, which had been flown in from New York State. At 5:30 this morning, she got the news, and the news wasn't good. The liver was slightly too large, and someone else on the floor needed it even more than she did.
We added the two and two together. This recipient is somewhat larger than Erin. This recipient is probably in a more acute situation. And for those two reasons, we decided to use the organ for him rather than for her.
While it's disappointing for patients like Erin to come in and then not get a transplant, it sometimes happens. Despite the temporary setback, Erin's transplant surgeon told us he's confident a suitable donor will soon be found. In the meantime, Erin remains hospitalized, waiting for a second chance at life. Susan Fenko, Eyewitness News, University Hospital in Madison. In HealthCast tonight, a quick update for you on Erin Davison. For the second time in 2 days, Erin was once again hopeful overnight that a liver donor had been found for the life-saving transplant surgery that she needs. But for the second time in 2 days, it was determined at the last minute that the liver was not suitable for her. Erin remains hospitalized in Madison tonight. She remains in good spirits. Many of you have been asking about sending her cards or letters, and if you'd like to do so, you can write to Erin in care of WFRV TV. We will make sure that all the mail gets to her as soon as possible. She thanks you, as we do, for your thoughts and prayers.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Before we begin tonight's news, we'd like to share some good news with all of you. Now, as you know, our co-worker Erin Davison has been away from work for some time. Erin suffers from a rare liver disease, and a liver transplant is her only hope for a normal life. Well, right now, Erin is getting her transplant at University Hospital in Madison. Now, earlier this morning, she was notified a donor liver had been located. Her gift of life is coming from an 18-year-old Florida man. Now, she went into surgery late this afternoon, and that operation can take anywhere from 5 to 25 hours. But according to doctors, the donor liver was of the correct size and tissue type for Erin, and that leads them to believe the operation should be a great success. Now, medical reporter Susan Fenko is on her way to Madison tonight, and we'll be sure to keep you posted on her progress. Now, our prayers go out to Erin, and we're sure all of you join us here at Channel 5 in wishing her all the best for a quick and speedy recovery.
And a very pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Monday's Live at 5. Susan is not here today, but she is in Madison, where Erin Davison today received the new liver that she had been waiting weeks to receive. That transplant operation took about 13 hours in all, which is about average for this type of surgery. We understand that Erin is doing remarkably well so far. Her condition has just been upgraded from critical but stable to serious. Now, Susan is live at University Hospital in Madison, and we're going to go to her live right now. And Susan, so far, so good.
You're right, Tom. So far, so good. It has been a long couple of days for Erin, her family, and the transplant team here at University Hospital in Madison. It all began yesterday at about 7:48 a.m. when Erin received a call that yet another possible liver donor had been found. Twice before in the past week, Erin had been called to Madison because doctors thought a donor had been found. Erin and her husband Gary rushed to University Hospital once again, while the transplant team rushed to Miami, Florida for the liver of an 18-year-old male. Everyone was hopeful this liver would be the right match in size and blood type.
On the way down, we knew there was a possibility like the past two other times, but we just said third time is a charm.
And this one matched. By late afternoon, Erin was in surgery. What you're seeing is an actual liver transplant, but it is not Erin. Her surgery took longer than usual, 13 hours total, because doctors had to clear out a severely blocked vessel leading to the liver. After that very tense time was over, the rest of the surgery went well.
Overall, the surgery went very well. At the current time, she's doing extremely well. And we were all very surprised to see that she was already awake this morning. Probably about 6:30, she was already waking up.
The most critical time for Erin is the 4 to 8 hours following the surgery, but doctors say that already they can tell her new liver is working quite well. In fact, she's improving so rapidly, there is some speculation that they may move her out of intensive care by tonight. Possibility she could be home in 2 or 3 weeks. Joining us right now is Dan Steen, who is a transplant coordinator here at the hospital. He's worked with Erin's case. Is it unusual to be called to the hospital 2 or 3 times before a suitable donor is found?
I think it is the exception for a patient to be called in a number of times. In Erin's case, the procurement of the organ was a long-distance procurement. In the case of her transplant, the donor organ was in Florida. And also, here's a case where the recipient is waiting at home in another city. And so in order to coordinate getting the donor organ to the hospital and bringing the patient in at the same time, this brought for the unusual circumstances here.
I know for a lot of us who know Erin and people that are viewers out there have been very concerned for Erin and others like her. It's really raised our awareness about the problem. Is there anything we can do to help?
Well, I think there is. You've heard time and again about the importance of signing a donor card, and certainly that's important. But equally important is to discuss this, your wishes with your family members. So at the time that a tragedy happens, they clearly know what your wishes are.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan, so much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
As our viewers know, Erin has been off of work for a couple of months because she was waiting for that liver transplant. But Erin is not alone. While the methods of transplantation surgery have greatly improved over the past few years, unfortunately, the number of donors has not. In 1989, more than 13,000 Americans received transplanted organs. Most organs came through the federally funded United Network for Organ Sharing.
I have a heart to offer you. This is a 24-year-old Caucasian female, A positive.
The names, tissue types, and medical records of more than 21,000 prospective recipients are stored in computers, where they remain until they are either matched up with the donor organ or they die. The donors, on the other hand, only get into the computers after they are declared brain dead, but while their other vital organs are still functioning. Their names and medical records are supplied by 6,500 hospitals in the United Network. In Wisconsin, you can become a donor simply by signing the back of your driver's license. When accident victims have not signed an organ donor card, consent must be obtained from their families. The donor and recipient have to be approximately the same weight, and they must have compatible blood types. There should also be a tissue match, but often the urgency of the recipient's plight outweighs the need for a perfect match. Fortunately for Erin, of course, her transplant did come through. Doctors say she now has a very, very good chance of once again leading a normal life and will be cured of Wilson's disease, which is the disease that caused her liver problem in the first place. Of course, our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we'll keep you updated on Erin's situation tonight at 6 and 10 and throughout the week. Tom?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lois Tomey. Susan Finko is in Madison. Topping our news, a note of optimism from Madison tonight.
You bet. Doctors say they are extremely pleased with how well Erin Davison is doing this evening following an overnight liver transplant. As Lois said, Susan is in Madison. She joins us live now from University Hospitals, where the operation took place late last night and early this morning. Susan?
Thank you, Tom and Lois. You know, those of us who know Erin very well really weren't surprised to hear that Erin was already awake and alert within hours of the overnight transplant surgery. She's a real fighter. Erin had been waiting for more than a month for a life-saving liver transplant operation. Twice last week, Erin and her husband Gary were told there might be a donor for her. Neither one turned out to be a good match. Yesterday, they were called again, and this time it was a go. While it's been a trying time for them, yesterday they got an emotional lift from one of their favorite pastimes, watching the Packer game.
It was really kind of strange because we had the surgeons and part of the surgical crew were in the room, and her parents and I was there, and we were watching the Packer game, and they're briefing Erin on what was going to transpire, and we were watching the TV monitor, and the cheers went up when Eddie West caught the touchdown, and they just wheeled her out to the operating room.
The surgery looked much like this one, except it took a little longer than usual, 13 hours compared to 8 or 10. That's because Erin had a vessel blockage going into the liver. It was so severe, one of her doctors couldn't believe she was still alive.
I wonder how she did live that years with that liver, almost a dead liver.
It was a tedious process, but the blockage was successfully cleared and the rest of the surgery went well. She came out of surgery early this morning, and within hours, Erin was awake and trying to communicate.
They were expecting her to be in sleeping for the next 6 hours, but she popped up right away, and as her eyes are open, she's squeezing her hand and trying to write, believe it or not. That's the reporter in her. She's trying to write already, you know.
And tonight, Erin remains in the Trauma Life Center, or the intensive care unit. Her condition has been upgraded from critical to serious, and that is very good considering how soon it's been after the transplant surgery.
Very encouraging, certainly, Susan. Tell us what you can about the donor liver and where it came from.
Well, we know that the donor, the liver donor, was an 18-year-old Miami, Florida man. However, they do not release the name of the donor or how that person died. But we do know that either he or someone in his family cared enough to give someone else the gift of life. You know, there are a lot of people like Erin, 20,000 people in this country who are waiting for a liver transplant or another type of transplant operation. The wait can be long, and finding a suitable donor can be a very complicated process. Just a few years ago, the pool of available donors, mostly people who suffered fatal head injuries and accidents, stood at about 25,000 a year. But seatbelt laws, airbags in cars, increased use of helmets by bikers and motorcyclists, reduction of speed limits to 55, and tougher enforcement of drunk driving laws have all helped to reduce the motor vehicle death rate and the number of available organ donors. Last year, fewer than 20,000 people were considered organ donor candidates, and consent was obtained for only 4,100 of them. The others carried their organs to the grave with them. At the same time, the demand for donor organs has gone up. The increased demand, coupled with a better understanding of the needs of recipients, has resulted in some relaxation of the criteria by which potential donors are judged, particularly with respect to age. Today, transplant surgeons will occasionally take hearts, livers, lungs, and pancreases from donors in their 60s and kidneys from donors in their 70s. If the shortage grows more acute, some of the other criteria may also loosen up. Unfortunately for Erin, she has gotten a second chance at life with this liver transplant operation. We're continuing to monitor her progress throughout the night. We'll have an update for you tonight after Monday Night Football.
Okay, thanks, Susan. We'll keep our fingers crossed and give her our very best as well.
You bet I will.
All right, thanks, Susan.
Channel 5 co-anchor Erin Davison will be moved out of intensive care at University Hospital in Madison sometime early this evening. As you know, Erin received a life-saving liver transplant yesterday. Now, since then, she's been in what's called the Trauma Life Center for critically ill patients, but she's improved so rapidly, they'll move her today, a day earlier than most.
Well, she's really doing well. She's awake, she's alert. The breathing tube came out and she's off the ventilator. She has good skin color.
And if all goes well, she could be out of the hospital within 2 to 3 weeks.
That is just amazing.
It is.
That is hard to believe. Have you had a chance to see her yet since the surgery?
No, it's really too early, and we will be visiting with her in future weeks, but the first day or so, they don't really allow anybody in except maybe your husband and your mother, who have been visiting Erin, by the way. They say she is in great spirits, and of course she looks forward to getting out of that intensive care unit. You have a lot more freedom when you're with the other transplant patients.
Well, from what you've said and from what the doctors you've talked to have said, that she's doing just remarkably well by all accounts.
Well, she is, but we do want to caution people that with transplants, especially the first couple of weeks, things can change rapidly. So it is possible she'll have setbacks here and there, but overall they say it's such a good sign that she's improved so rapidly right away, because that means she's on her way to recovery, and she's really looking forward to it.
We'll sure keep our fingers crossed. Well, all of us here at Channel 5, and we know many of you throughout 5 country, are keeping your fingers crossed that Erin Davison will continue her recovery. She seems to be smiling a lot today as that recuperation begins at University Hospitals in Madison, and you've just returned from there.
We did. We were following Erin's 13-hour liver transplant surgery, which occurred Sunday night and Monday morning. And Erin is now wide awake. She's off the respirator. She's had numerous IVs removed, which is good news. Now, since the surgery, she's been in isolation in the Trauma Life Center, or intensive care unit. But she improved so rapidly that they say by this evening she'll be on the regular transplant
Today
floor.
she's completely alert and oriented, and is really doing quite well.
But that is not to say it has been completely smooth sailing. Earlier today, there was a scare when one of the blood tests showed a level higher than usual on one indicator, indicating that there could be a clotting problem. Now, why that is so serious is that if that were the case, Erin might need another liver transplant. However, they quickly rushed her in for an ultrasound test and determined that the blood level was just fluctuating and that the vessel was open, so she was in the clear on that. Fortunately, you know, that happened, but there can be ups and downs in the recovery process.
Yeah, it's not an easy recovery.
No, it is not.
Have you had a chance to see her?
No, we weren't. We were going to, though, this morning, and that's when the blood test came back, and they were so concerned they wanted to have her tested right away. However, her husband and mother have been seeing her and say she's doing great.
All right, and we do plan to go back and see her sometime soon?
Hopefully next week before she gets out of the hospital in a couple of weeks. We'll stay optimistic.
We wish her the best.
We bet
Thanks,
we do.
Susan, very much.
Channel 5 co-anchor Erin Davison continues to make progress following last week's liver transplant surgery at University Hospital in Madison. As part of her recovery, Erin is taking part in a nationwide study comparing the traditional anti-rejection drug cyclosporin to a new drug developed in Japan, FK506.
It went through extensive animal testing for the past 3-4 years, and about a year ago, the transplant program at the University of Pittsburgh began human trials with the drug.
And now 8 hospitals across the country, including University Hospital in Madison, are conducting a controlled study of the two drugs. Because it's a randomized study, Erin didn't know until she received her transplant which drug she'd receive. It turns out she's on the traditional drug cyclosporin. However, another liver transplant patient from 5 Country, 10-year-old Amber Bushman, is receiving the new drug. And within a year, doctors hope to determine which of the two drugs is best for liver transplant patients. Tomorrow we'll be traveling to Madison to visit with Erin, and we'll have stories for you at 5, 6, and 10.
All right, we look forward to that tomorrow, Susan. On Wednesday's Child this week. Also tonight, organ transplant surgeries, they continue to improve, and so do the methods for dealing with life after the transplant.
That's what our own Erin Davison faces now after her life-saving liver transplant last week in Madison. The latest word is Erin is still doing well, but is experiencing some rejection of her new liver, which is normal following a transplant. But as medical reporter Susan Finko tells us, Erin is also part of a nationwide study comparing 2 anti-rejection drugs.
When Erin was waiting for her transplant surgery, she didn't know when it would happen, but she did know that after the surgery, she'd become part of a nationwide study comparing 2 anti-rejection drugs, cyclosporin, the standard drug, which has worked well for most, but not all patients, and a new drug developed in Japan, FK506. Although FK506 has been in use for about a year at the University of Pittsburgh, it has not undergone the control study needed for FDA approval, so it can be given to all liver transplant patients. So now University Hospital in Madison, along with 7 other medical facilities across the country, are testing it out.
Initial word from Pittsburgh is that this drug has a superior immunosuppressive efficacy. In other words, fewer rejection episodes, fewer complications or side effects.
When a patient undergoes surgery, a card is pulled in the pharmacy indicating whether the patient will get cyclosporin or the new drug. In Erin's case, she's receiving the standard treatment, cyclosporin. But another liver transplant patient from 5 Country, 10-year-old Amber Bushman of Oshkosh, is receiving the new drug.
The study is intended to analyze about 350 patients. The drug company hopes to have those 350 patients enrolled by the middle of next year. By the end of next year, they would then be able to analyze about 350 patients with 6 months to 1 year follow-up and present that information to the FDA to demonstrate its safety and its efficacy.
And while it's unknown at this point how the study will turn out, it gives transplant patients like Erin another reason to hope for an even better life after surgery. Susan Finko, Eyewitness News, Madison.
Tomorrow, Susan and photographer Rob Messerschmidt will talk with Erin in Madison and bring you the latest at 5, 6, and 10.
And still ahead for us on Eyewitness News at 10 tonight.
A recovery report tonight on Erin Davison. She's making remarkable progress following her liver transplant surgery.
That's good news for all of us to hear, and that's what her surgeon told Susan Finko today as she and photographer Rob Messerschmidt visited Erin at University Hospital in Madison.
you know, on the street.
But it's for Erin, in some ways, these past 11 days since her transplant have been the best of her life because she's gotten a second chance at life.
I feel like on Thanksgiving, that was the first day of a whole new life for me, because that's when everything really started to click with that new liver.
Although she's had one minor bout of organ rejection, in general, her first week and a half after surgery has been going very well. And that's important because it sets the pace for the rest of her recovery.
She can really look forward to a normal life after her liver transplant. Other than taking medications for the rest of her life, she should be able to resume a normal life and do all the things that she probably couldn't do before she had her liver transplant.
And if all continues to go well, Erin could be out of the hospital in about a week, and she'll continue her recuperation at home for another 4 to 6 weeks. It's a long process, but Erin says she's learning patience. All the cards and letters from viewers are helping. She even received this huge banner from the class of an Oshkosh transplant patient, Amber Bushman.
I feel so lucky because when you get to see one act of kindness, it can change your life. When you see hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds.
And Erin wants people to think about another act of kindness, organ donation.
They're going to realize that this is going to be such a positive thing in their lives, and it's going to help other people. It's the most giving thing that they could possibly do.
And no matter what lies ahead for her, Erin says now she's ready for it. Susan Finko, Eyewitness News, University Hospital, Madison.
And Susan will have another report on her visit with Erin today on Eyewitness News tonight at 10. If you have friends or loved ones in the I feel good, better than I've felt in a long time. Well, that's what Erin Davison is saying today, just 11 days after she received her life-saving liver transplant. Today, medical reporter Susan Finko and our photographer Rob Messerschmidt were in Madison visiting Erin.
Erin Davison knows people care about her, even people she's never met. Just look at some of the more than 500 cards and letters she's received since her transplant surgery.
I'm amazed. I'm truly overwhelmed and thankful.
All those kind wishes are making a difference in her recovery. Even her surgeon says they help.
Really nice that all these people are behind you and supporting you and want you to do well. It really does help.
But that's not to say Erin has an easy road ahead. 70% of all transplant patients are hospitalized at least once during the year following their transplant surgery. Erin has already had to deal with a minor bout of organ rejection.
He had a rejection episode probably about 3 or 4 days ago that's now responding to medication.
Erin is viewing the months ahead with optimism and is setting her sights on some very immediate goals.
The last couple of days, I'm starting to feel like myself. And in fact, I'm feeling like I have so much energy that I haven't had for a long time. And I'm really excited about getting to use this. But what's in my head and what I'm physically able to do are two different things. I'm thinking I can walk around the block. My body says, maybe a walk down to the floor and back is okay.
And knowing Erin, she'll accomplish everything she sets out to do. Susan Finko, Eyewitness News, University Hospital, Madison.
And we'll have more on Susan's visit with Erin at 6 and 10 o'clock tonight. And if all continues to go well, Erin could be out of the hospital in about a week, then to begin her recuperation at home. On HealthCast this evening.
Well, it was 11 days ago that Erin Davison received her life-saving liver transplant.
That was at University Hospital in Madison. She's doing great so far. And today, medical reporter Susan Finko and photographer Rob Messerschmidt were in Madison visiting Erin. And here's Susan's report.
Tom and Lois, on a personal level, I have to tell you that it is great to see Erin again. She has been through an awful lot in the past few months, but she looks really good. Never one to sit still for long, Erin is already walking the halls of the transplant floor, talking with other patients like Bill Doyle of Daggett, Michigan.
We can help each other a lot because it's real confusing for all of us to try to figure out what these lab values mean and how to do the medicines. And also just stupid things like, you know, having bags sticking out of you and what do you do about this and what do you do about the hunger, and when you have to be on massive doses of prednisone, how do you get through the night and things like that. So we can help each other on just sort of the day-to-day things.
And Erin's surgeon, Dr. Anthony D'Alessandro, says he's very pleased with her progress.
Erin's doing beautifully right now. She had a rejection episode probably about 3 or 4 days ago that's now responding to medication.
And Erin joins us right now. You look great. How are you feeling?
Thanks. I feel good. I feel like my old self. I'm starting to feel like my old self, and I'm starting to feel pretty healthy.
What's your next big step?
Getting out of here, and probably get out of here in another week, which is great. I'll make the 2-week record.
So many people have been asking about you. You have to know that a lot of viewers are really pulling for you.
Haven't they been wonderful? You guys are great. I feel good. I'm glad for them helping me get through this. They really have. And for telling me they're signing their organ donor cards.
Oh, that's great. Thanks so much for talking with us today. We wish you the best. We can't wait to see you around Green Bay more often.
Me too. Me too. Thanks.
Thanks, Erin. Back to you.
And thank you, Susan. And if Erin does get out of the hospital next week, and we'll knock on wood and keep our fingers crossed, she'll be recuperating at home for another 4 to 6 weeks. And we continue to wish her the very best and keep her in our prayers.
Well, a very pleasant end of November day.
Hello, I'm Tom Milburn. More than 6 months ago, my friend and co-worker Erin Davison left Eyewitness News. Erin was gravely ill and needed a liver transplant. Those of you who followed Erin's progress know she received a successful transplant in November. And now she's back as co-anchor of Eyewitness News at 10. I know I speak for everyone in the newsroom and many of you throughout 5 country when I say, welcome back, Erin.
From WFRV TV, Channel 5, this is Eyewitness News. With Erin Davison, Tom Milburn, Chief Meteorologist Tom Mahoney, and Sportscaster Larry McCarran.
And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on what's a very special night here at Eyewitness News. For the first time in what I guess is now almost 10 months, Erin is back with us, and we are sure glad to have you back.
Well, I am sure glad to be back. I am so happy. I feel like I've won $1 million in the lottery. It's been a long haul, but I feel great to be back.
We feel that way, too. So.